All right, just waiting for a couple of people to jump on while I walk. Um, so I kind of start talking just because I know some people will probably watch this back a little bit. Let's try to change a few things. There we go. Camera should be a little bit better now. Oh, I look really red. Oh, there we go. So here's the thing. While I take a sip of my Monster. Recently, I've been having a few discussions regarding evidence and how any, from personal trainer to keyboard coach to somebody that's studying, doing its PhD in the field of evidence-based science, can pull up any study that will kind of back and justify his biases in order to to succeed in his argument. And I thought to myself that I sometimes fall in the same category, that I fall in this category of I will totally use sometimes my biases in order to bring up certain papers that I'm aware of in order to justify why I do certain things the way that I do it. And I try to always back that up by science, and specifically evidence-based science. But here's the thing, that there is this mountain of research out there, and thank goodness, which is kind of like a positive, but it's also a negative at the same time, is that we have access to communication between each other so much. And we also have access to all these different studies and research papers and the latest thing that's going on that's getting published and the most recent things that are getting published. And most of the time, the access to all these things are completely free. So anybody can go and find them. And if you don't find them and it's behind locked, kind of like locked websites, you can usually email the author and they usually send out the paper to you free of charge, because they want their research to get out there, because they have these publicity sites like journals, medical journals, strength conditioning, associated neurological sites and nutritional sites. But here's the big thing. So in regards to the evidence, you have to look at it as multifactorial and multi-layered. For example, you cannot use research that researched a mechanism of a certain aspect, whether this is training, meaning strength training and conditioning, or whether this is nutrition, or whether this is some sort of maybe a new upcoming medication or supplement, that this specific thing in its mechanistic form is responsible to create a certain change. For example, if we have high blood pressure and we give niacin, we know that it lowers upper lipid B. Great, fantastic. But when we take that into the real world, out of the mechanistic research, which is an isolated incident, we realize that, oh shit, it doesn't actually do anything in the real world with real world applications. Same in training. So in a laboratory, you might do a certain intervention to see a mechanistic scale. And by all means, these things have to happen first in order for these ideas to manifest, the hypothesis to play out, and then we see whether it happens. But you have to always integrate it into the real world. You have to go through the different steps. You have to always assess how it goes through the steps. In first, it's maybe animal trials, and then it's human trials, and then it's isolated ward trials, and then it's metabolic chamber trials, then it's randomized control human trials. Like, it's multifactorial, it's multi-layered. You cannot just use one mechanism in the sense that, oh, this mechanism indicated that there's a 30% increase in muscle protein synthesis. So hence, if we do this and we train, we'll have a 30% increase in muscle protein synthesis. It doesn't work like that. You have to then test it on day-to-day people with their diets, highly palatable processed food diets, people with stress-related jobs, people that are inconsistent in training, people that are inconsistent in their diets. You have to see how the application of that mechanism is functioning through the different layers of research. So I can love it if, like, for example, sweeteners, for example, in training for years, it's been said that, oh, sweeteners destroy the gut and sweeteners causes insulin resistance. And well, if you look at it in isolated instances in the mechanism of it, yes, but then you look at it in real world application with dosage, quantity and dose dependent, then we see that it doesn't happen. It's such a negligence, not negligence, but it's such a tiny, lack of words now, but such a tiny amount that you are actually, taking in, or in this case, drinking, that it doesn't make any application or any differences in the real world, what we actually live in, because there's so many things that influence it. And that goes the same with training. So when you have a certain mechanism that you know in a laboratory, in a instant, does this, but you apply it to the real world, randomized controlled human trials. Sorry, there's a dog barking here. He doesn't seem to like me very much. Then we need to see the certain outcomes, and that's why we have research. So it can take our own biases. Like, let's say, for example, I know that most athletes need to deload every 3 weeks. That was my bias. And where did I get my bias? Maybe from my own training. I know that after 3 weeks, I'm so pooped in training, I have to deload. But then we can take this application or this idea and we can go, we need to test this over not one, not two, not three people, but the bigger we can have a sample size under controlled circumstances, the better we can see what is the mean, what is the average of how people respond to this specific intervention. And then we have to take that intervention, after we see the certain outcomes of it, we have to then apply that in the real world. Because if you look at any research and you look at a bell curve, you're always going to have a mean and you're always going to have the ends of the bell curve. If it slopes down, you know how it slopes down to the end. And there are always going to be a certain percentage of people that fall out of the standard deviation of a bell curve. Always. And those people are hyper responders or hypo responders or low responders. And this is very important because when we look at evidence-based research, we need to assess that, okay, we cannot only look at a mechanistic point of view, isolated studies. It needs to be also in vitro, and then it needs to be on humans, and then it needs to be randomized controls without any biases. So what I'm trying to say is, long story, short answer actually, but when you read certain type of papers and research papers, you have to look at it with a broader spectrum. You cannot be the person that goes, oh, no, the abstract of this says this. I don't even read the whole study, because sometimes what is in the abstract is purely an interpretation of the person that did the study. And you can make your own interpretation from reading the research, the methods, the results. And then you can make your own aspects. But look at it as multifactorial. Don't look at it as a means to an end. Because if you do, you're going to sell yourself short. I have made these mistakes before. I'm probably going to make these mistakes again. But I think if we're aware of that, we need to keep a broader spectrum and a broader eye on these things. I think we'll be all better off and more educated. All right, guys, if you like this, let me know down below if you got any comments or any questions. Let me also know down below. It was just something that was on my mind, and I thought I wanted to share it. Like, subscribe, all that beautiful stuff, and have a good day. Ciao.